again, everybody, and welcome to Inside Lowell, another podcast here on the Inside Lowell Network. I'm Teddy Panos, and I've got a couple of great guests today talking about one of the great sports rivalries, arguably the greatest sports rivalry here in Lowell, in the greater Lowell area, the Merrimack Valley, and it's a rivalry that is going to see its next chapter played out at the Boston Garden on Friday night, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, as a matter of fact, in the Hockey East semifinals. I'm going to bring in my guests in a quick minute. Just want to once again thank you all for joining us and thank our sponsors for helping to make this podcast and all of our Inside Lowell podcasts possible. Of course, our friends at Washington Savings Bank. A lot of consternation out there in the banking world with the collapse of SVB out there, Silicon Valley banking, and talk of bailouts. And a lot of folks are getting a little bit nervous. Step one in being secure with your money and your finances is you should be doing business with a local bank that knows you, its customer, it knows its community. And that's exactly what Washington Savings Bank is. As a matter of fact, we got a podcast coming up on Inside Lowell with President James Hogan from Washington Savings Bank that will address this a little bit more. So you'll want to check that out on our website. You also want to bank with Washington Savings Bank. They have a number of great products and services, unmatched service really here in Lowell, in the community. WashingtonSavings.com to learn more. That's WashingtonSavings.com. I'd also like to thank our friends at Rivalry 73, a local cannabis dispensary. It's a new industry here in Massachusetts, and a lot of folks are confused. They don't know about the products. They don't know about the dispensaries themselves. Well, Rivalry 73 stands out. The store itself, it's bright, it's beautiful, it's clean. The staff is friendly, knowledgeable, and always willing to go the extra mile to answer any questions you might have. So whether you're new to the world of cannabis or a canna connoisseur, the team at Rivalry 73 is sure to elevate your experience. Visit them at their 1148 Bridge Street location in Lowell. They're at 1148 Bridge Street in Lowell, or you can order online at Rivalry73.com. Thank you as well to our friends at Hafner's. Your car probably needs a good wash, right? After the recent snowstorm and all the treatment that the crews put out there on the roads. Get to the Hafner's car washes and take care of your car, extend its life, make it look clean and beautiful as the day you purchased it. Also sign up for one of their car wash plans. They're very affordable and they give you unlimited monthly washes. They can tailor a plan specifically for you. They got a bunch of great options. And of course, Hafner's convenience stores, gas stations all over Greater Lowell and the Merrimack Valley. And don't forget their heating oil, whether you heat your home with oil or with propane, Hafner's is your place. Call 866-IT-KICKS, 866-IT-KICKS, or visit hafners.com. And with that, we turn our attention to our two guests over here. You may recognize these two guys, and one of them you're definitely going to recognize his voice, but on the left of your screen right here is the longtime hockey coach, really the guy who built the UMass Lowell hockey program and is responsible more than anyone else for what it is today. That is longtime head coach Bill Riley. Good morning, Coach. How are you, sir?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing fantastic. We should note that you did step down from coaching and retired, but you're still a presence at every single one of their big games, and as many games as you can get to, right?
Oh yeah, I'm a number one fan, and go to most all the games, home and away. And the head coach, Normie Bazin, played for me, and very happy with his success and the team's continued success.
Yeah, they definitely. And again, they were playing. We're recording this for those who don't know on Thursday, March 16th, but tomorrow, Friday, March 17th, they're playing in the Hockey East semifinals at the Boston Garden against their arch rivals from back when you were coaching, Coach Riley, Merrimack College. The man who's going to call the play-by-play of that game on the radio is also joining us here, Bob Ellis, the longtime, how many year voice of the Riverhawks hockey, Bob?
39 now. And I look forward to it.
You know, I'll tell you what, you don't look like you've been calling him for a day over 20 years. You're
They
looking
keep
good,
me
my
young. They
friend.
keep me young. No question about it.
Yeah, especially with all these great games. But the game Friday night, it's kind of a big deal. These two teams have met in the Hockey East playoffs, I believe, once before. Am I correct?
No, a few more times than that. Met first time in the Hockey East tournament back in 1994. That was at the Tully Forum. Riverhawks won that 2 games straight, I think 7-1, 3-0 the second time. Current coach Norm Bazin had the hat trick in that 3-0 game, which was Dwayne Rollison's second career shutout. College hockey in those day and age didn't have a lot of shutouts. Anyway, then they didn't meet for what seemed like forever. And I think it was 2018, and that didn't go well for the Riverhawks. They lost twice in overtime at the Songus Center. Then a year ago, after Merrimack had swept the regular season series, much like this year, they met in the quarterfinal round of the Hockey East tournament, and UMass Lowell won that 7-2.
Yeah, but they've never met at the
They have never met at the Garden
in the semifinals.
They've never gotten
this high.
That's correct.
So
yes, in Division I and Hockey East, they have met previously in the Division II days. Winning a national championship, one had to go through the other at some point. And ULowell would win 3 national championships. First 2 of them, the championship game was played at the Volpe complex at the Lawler rink on the campus of Merrimack College, not against Merrimack. They'd been eliminated at some point previous. But so, I mean, the history's entwined because Lowell's first 2 national championships are won in Merrimack's building. The 3rd national championship would be won at the Tully Forum. But those 2 met, and that's really where the rivalry was born. It's not a rivalry if both teams aren't good, and both teams were good in the Division II days. The rivalry has waned a bit now in Division I because for the longest period of time, Merrimack wasn't very good, wasn't very competitive. Or in a couple of years, and they had a couple of years with Stefan DaCosta playing for them, where Merrimack was very good. Lowell wasn't necessarily good. In the most recent years, last year, this year, both certainly are worthy of attention nationally, and that makes a rivalry interesting.
It certainly does, and it became a rivalry because of the guy to the left of our screen, Coach Riley. I want you to take us back, Coach, to the early days. All due respect to the teams that are going to be on the ice at the Garden this year, but as you kind of pointed out, Bob, it's not the same rivalry it was. It was intense back in the 70s, Coach, and we're going to tell some of the stories. And by the way, we're not on radio. We're on the internet, which means you can use the actual words if you so choose. But kind of take us back to the beginning there. As with most rivalries, they start with one team kind of dominating the other, and the other team kind of goes all in to equal their arch rival, and that's when it really flourishes. That was you guys. Merrimack was kind of the gold standard for Division II hockey, and then this brash young coach comes into what was then ULowell, what were then the Chiefs, not that fancy little Riverhawks logo that Ellis is going. You had a real school nickname, the Chiefs, right? And you said, we're taking them down.
Yeah, well, we did. We certainly we had a lot of respect for Tom Waller and Brendan Sheehy, the 2 coaches. And they had a mascot too, if I'm not mistaken. I think it had Indian heritage to it. And the reason we had our Indian chief was because the Merrimack River and the Concord River met, and that's where the Indian chiefs would meet once a year for their powwows and share bread. So it had some historical significance. And so Merrimack was the team that we wanted to be. They had their own rink. In fact, the day I went to see the rink, Tom Lowell hosted the tour, and he was just thrilled to death. And myself, not being an engineer, working at an engineering school, went through the back bowels of the rink, saying, "Geez, how can you even run a rink? With all these pressures and but they're all self-explanatory. They work, they build themselves. They make the ice themselves, and it just runs itself like your heating system.
So they had a rink, Billy.
Yeah.
You, meanwhile, were practicing by freezing over the tennis court.
Oh yeah, yeah. We started out. We had an outdoor artificial rink that had not yet been okayed by the state. So for the purpose of having ice, I ran the outdoor rink on natural ice. We had purchased the Harvard Zamboni, which was antiquated. They had bought a new one. So that was the least of our problems. What would happen was the wind would always blow towards the Merrimack River. So after 10 or 15 minutes of skating, all the wind would blow the snow, the ice shavings, to one end of the rink. So we could really only use one end of the rink so that the puck wouldn't be bogged down with the snow. So after 1 year, 2 years of really tough outdoor frosty weather and snow and sleet and snow and everything, we were able to move to 5 other rinks over the course of my career. I mean, we went to Skate 3, we went to the Janus rink, we were at a rink in Nashua, we were at the Bill Ricker Forum, which we were fortunate enough to buy, and then we moved to the rink we have today, which is, showcase in itself. A lot of people say our rink is as nice as any rink in the league, and I don't disagree with them.
Most certainly is. Interesting. How did you end up kind of settling on the Tully Forum, as it was known back in those days, versus the Janus, which was in Lowell as kind of the home rink for the Lowell Chiefs?
Well, we could have bought Skate 3 that had at the time 3 rinks, but because that was on the block to be bought if needed. But I didn't want to have 3 rinks. I only need 1 rink, and the Bill Ricker Forum had the biggest seating capacity. So I was thinking that the bigger the seating capacity, the more fans we can draw, and it wasn't that far from the rink, from the university itself. So we were able to go with later became the Chelmsford rink. Later we named it after
State senator.
The senator
Joe Tully. Yep.
Joe Tully, who was instrumental in helping us getting the funds. And that was interesting because usually the state only gives, favor to the president's top 2 or 3 wishes. And unfortunately at the time, the rink was not a priority. It was ranked around 19th. But somehow remarkably, it came up number 2.
Joe Tully was a sport.
Yeah, so
and a powerful man in the Senate.
I got in a lot of trouble because my number one choice, which was number 19 on the hit parade, went to number 2. But we prevailed.
So you came from beginnings where you were literally practicing for a college hockey team out on an outdoor rink. Merrimack's got their own rink. They're also kicking your butt pretty regularly on those occasions where you played, right?
Yeah, they won the first 10 meetings between the 2.
Meetings, yeah. I mean, a good story. I started a Thanksgiving tournament, kind of to kick off the season. And of course, Merrimack was always invited to the tournament, and it was a Thanksgiving game played on Thanksgiving evening. After people would have their turkey or whatever choice they had for their meals, and it always went over well because it kicked off the hockey season. And at that point, I thought this was our year. We could maybe get to Merrimack. So I had a student manager send a program to Gilles Moffat, who was a goalie for Merrimack, pictures of the program and of a goalie, but we put Moffat's picture in the middle of the turkey in place of the face. And I actually went down, and because it's Thanksgiving, being loyal to Thanksgiving, I actually bought a live turkey. And you know, I can remember being at the farm up in New Hampshire, and some fellow recognizing me and saying to the baseball coach, Jim Stone, he says, "Is that Coach Riley over there?" And he said, "What is he doing there?" You know, this is paraphrasing Jim Stone. He says, "I don't know." He says, "He's buying a turkey, though." He says, I don't know. I don't even want to talk about it.
You didn't buy a turkey that was already, you know, prepared for you.
I bought
I bought a live
turkey.
And you didn't just keep it at your house. That turkey ended up in the Merrimack net at the beginning of that game, right?
Well, the turkey served two purposes. We would run. I brought the idea of having a turkey trot at Thanksgiving. So the intramural department, people would run like a 3 mile road race, and the winner would get the turkey. But I also bought the turkey to put in the net before the game, tied to the net, because we had sent pictures of the turkey to Gilles Marvin, the goalie, and I had been following the team for 5 or 6 games. And they were playing the BUs, the BCs, the Providence, and they weren't really successful, but they were competitive, but they were getting a lot of injuries along the way, and so Brendan Sheehy, the assistant coach, was a friend of mine, socially a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And Tom Wallace said, "What's the story with Riley? Every time I turn around, he's at our games." He says, "Well, he thinks he can beat us this year." And because we got some injuries. They only had 4 healthy defensemen in the game in the tournament. And so we played our hearts out. And, of course, the turkey started out the game in the net when they came out after the warm-outs. But it didn't work too well, because the minute the turkey hit the ice, the legs went out this way. And
who put the turkey on the ice? Nobody knows, right? No one tried to blame some poor student who got rambunctious, I'm thinking access to the ice before a big hockey game. It's got to be somebody in the hockey program.
Yeah,
are you ready all these years later to fess up?
I don't even know. That remains anonymous who that person was. I don't remember who it was, to be honest with you. But the turkey, it was no show, because the minute he hit the ice, he was laid out. But the poor turkey, he defecated all over the crease in the net. And so they had to clean that up first. And this poor co-ed went out and took the turkey, untied it, and took it out. And, it was all over her clothing. And so this was on a Friday. So Monday morning, 2 police officers come down, not in uniform, plain clothesmen. I didn't know who they were, but I could tell the way they were walking and their style. I said, "Oh, this looks like trouble." And so they introduced themselves, and they said, "Are you Riley?" And I said, "Yes, Coach Riley, yes." They said, "Well, we have a turkey down in the police station. Oh, in the dog pound. You have to come down and get it." And I said, "Excuse me, that turkey is not mine. That was purchased for Coach Lawler." And with that, they in disgust turned their head and walked away. I never saw or heard from them again, and nothing was ever said, Did
you win the turkey game? That's what everybody wants to know.
Well, what happened was we put like 54 shots on the net. We dominated, but Gilles Marvin was not to be, turned away. He made like 54 saves, and we couldn't beat him.
You ticked him off by putting the turkey in the net. You should have left him alone.
Yeah, it was a 4-4 tie. I outfoxed myself.
So what year was that?
That was probably, I'm guessing, probably like 76.
1976. Yeah. Okay. So do you remember the first time you beat them? You must, right? That must be ingrained in your memory. The first time you actually beat Merrimack.
Yeah, we beat them on a goal. Tommy.
Mike McGinn.
Tommy McGinn.
Again,
Tommy
Mike McGinn.
McGinn from Stoneham, where I lived at the time, was a defenseman. He shot the puck from the red line to dump it in the zone, and it went in the net.
That was the deciding goal.
That was the deciding goal. We won the game.
3-2.
It was, a lucky shot, but there's the reason. Put the puck on the net, Don't be shooting it off the net. Get it on the net. You never know what's going to happen.
And what year was then? What was
I think
that?
it was around 65 or 66. Yeah. And then slowly we got better and better and better, and pretty soon in 67
60 or 70s, you mean?
in 77.
77, yeah.
In 77, we played Bowdoin. Now, Bowdoin was a pre-med program. They would beat Merrimack. They won the Nationals like 4 years in a row. But we played Bowdoin, and we beat them. So then we had to go to Merrimack, and, of course, we lost at Merrimack. Merrimack wins the national championship that year. And so the next year was 79. Poor Tom Lawler passed away that year. So in 79, we took control. We won the national championship. And then a total of 3. We were in 5 that era, and then went Division I.
Was there, for you as a coach, was there, as you look at the program and its development, was there a turning point? Was there one player that seemed to make the difference? Because I look back at the history, and you had some terrific teams, but you couldn't get over that one last step until it seemed Craig McTavish came aboard. Was he the difference maker?
Yeah, I would say that Craig McTavish was probably the difference maker. I mean, he was surrounded by a few really good players.
Oh, terrific. Tommy Jacobs. You guys had terrific players.
Yeah, that McTavish played his freshman year and his sophomore year. The Bruins drafted him at the end of his sophomore year. And by Thanksgiving that year, he was playing for the Bruins, not on the farm team, but playing for the Bruins. And so the scout for the Bruins called me up when they drafted him, going into his freshman year, and said, "Hey, by the way, we drafted your player, McTavish." I had told them about him at a tournament at Brown University where I was refereeing. Kiddingly, I said, "I don't know what you guys are doing here. The best guy in the country's, in the East anyway, is up at my house, the Tully Forum. You ought to come up and see him." He never came up to see him. He just drafted him.
Just on your word alone.
On my word.
And for those who don't know, Craig McTavish went on to play almost like a 2-decade career in NHL, became a head coach, one of the Stanley Cup champion with the Edmonton Oilers, et cetera.
New York Rangers won another Stanley Cup there.
Yeah, but for those wondering, like the quality of hockey we're talking about here, this was an NHL star on the ice during some of those wars with Merrimack, right?
Yeah.
And interesting, a lot of those players are still kind of fixtures in the community, right? Some of your guys, Ken Kaiser, Dean Jenkins, see them around all the time. They're in business in the area. And,
they're builders, they're entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Dean Jenkins, maybe the best captain a team ever had.
Yeah.
It's like having another coach on the ice.
Yeah. I mean, Dean Jenkins really wasn't recruited. I mean, Gary Bishop, my assistant coach, says, "You got to take a look at this guy, Jenkins." I said, "Well, he only played for Bill Ricker High his senior year. How can he play for us?" He says, "I'm telling you, that guy can play for us." I said, "Well, if you want to recruit him, you can recruit him." So he recruited him, and he came. Sure enough, he was by far the best captain we ever had, and competitive, and just grew by leaps and bounds. And then his brother came, Mark, who was at Union College, but when that program fell apart, he transferred, played for us for 1 year, and the two of them, along with a number of other players, won the national championship.
So a lot of history there. We're chatting with former UMass Lowell hockey coach, well, ULowell hockey coach, Bill Riley, Bob Ellis, the now 39-year voice, play-by-play voice of the Riverhawks. We're going to continue our discussion in a quick second. I want to have Coach Riley talk about what prompted the quote, which I actually saw on Twitter just a couple of days ago, which prompted me to reach out and say, probably a good idea to go out and do this podcast. But I want to thank our sponsors for helping make Inside Lowell and all of our podcasts possible. Of course, our friends at Rivalry 73 local cannabis shop. Their location is at 1148 Bridge Street in Lowell. They're opening up 2 more locations in Massachusetts planned for this year, 2023. One in Gloucester, one in Beverly. Their mission statement: to listen, explain, inspire, and delight. And they're really focused on the customer education and the customer experience. So whether you're new to the world of cannabis or a canna connoisseur, the team at Rivalry 73 will elevate your cannabis experience. Visit them at 1148 Bridge Street in Lowell, or go online to Rivalry73.com. Thank you as well to our friends at Hafner's. We got lucky, kind of a mild winter, but probably some cold days left. You want to make sure that your home heating system is ready. Hafner's oil or propane, whether you heat your home with oil or propane, they are the family you can trust to keep your family warm on those cold winter nights. They offer quick, reliable, and friendly service, and they offer great options like auto pay and auto delivery to make your life easier. Call 866-IT-KICKS to learn more, 866, or visit hafners.com. And last but certainly not least, our friends at Washington Savings Bank. I'm showing off the mug, water today instead of coffee, but our friends at Washington Savings, maybe they'll give you a nice little present for opening up an account with them. They'll also give you peace of mind. A lot of people nervous these days with what's going on in the banking industry. Swiss Bank having some issues all over the news. As we're recording this podcast, folks are nervous. That's why you need a local bank that you can trust, one that's been in your community of Lowell for over 130 years now. That's Washington Savings Bank. You can trust them. They know their customers. They know their community. And they're not like some of these bigger banks that take unnecessary risks. Visit WashingtonSavings.com to learn more. WashingtonSavings.com, or visit them in their downtown Lowell location. And they also have a branch in Dracut. We continue with UMass Lowell's former hockey coach, Bill Riley, their play-by-play guy, Bob Ellis. Of course, the Riverhawks are going to face off against Merrimack College Hockey East semifinals on St. Patrick's Day at the Garden. We know you're going to be there calling the game. You're going to be there, right, Coach?
Yeah, 7:15.
I remember you in 2013 when UMass Lowell finally broke through in Division I and got to won their first Hockey East championship on the Garden. You were right there on the ice, one of the first guys to get his hands on that trophy. You were also there through the NCAA tournament and ultimately in Pittsburgh for that disappointing loss in the Frozen Four.
Yeah.
Well, let's also say, I mean, let's not forget, when we say broke through in 2013, you got to remember, Billy Riley took us from practicing on a tennis court to winning Division II national championships to being a member of Hockey East in the first season, and then also took this program to the NCAA tournament in 1988. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden in 2013 everything fell into place. This is the guy, and I call him the godfather of UMass Lowell hockey. But he got us from tennis courts to the NCAA tournament in Division I.
100%. And that's, I was going in my long-winded way I could see the reverence with which the current team treats you, or that team in 2013, right from the coach who played for you. So that's understandable. But, these are 20-year-old kids. Some of them may be younger, 22-year-old kids. And you could tell that they understood what you meant to that program on that night at the Garden as they all posed for that photo and skated around. What was that night like for you? After everything that you went through, as Bob pointed out, to build a program to that point. And what was it like for you to be on the ice that night? Give us your thoughts, Coach.
It was seriously, it was, very enlightening, very rewarding. It wasn't an easy ride. Everything didn't come that easy to us. At one point, I felt that I had basically, so to speak, whipped the horse too hard, and I had worked the kids too hard to the point where we lost 3 games in a row. And I was just coming back from Minnesota on a scouting trip, and I happened to buy a cowboy hat, and I had a pair of cowboy boots. And so, being a bit of a carnival man, so to speak, I put the cowboy boots on, I put the cowboy hat on, and my pep talk with the team before we played Babson. Babson was a good program. They later, shortly after we went to Division I, they won the national championship in the country in Division II. And so I had told the team, I said, now look, you guys have got to not take me so serious. I said, but I'm still going to keep, pushing you, getting you in better shape, working you harder. And I want you to just, look at this cowboy hat and, in these cowboy boots, because anyone that lives in the East doesn't walk around with a cowboy hat on, and just take it with a grain of salt. Don't take me so serious. And so we went on and won the next 19 games, I think. Well, we went undefeated the rest of the year. Yep. And then we go into the national championship, which was played at
Merrimack.
No, I think, was it at Merrimack or at the Bill Becker Forum?
This is, I think, what, the first championship or the which championship?
Yeah,
because I know the picture. I've got a picture of you with the cowboy hat on.
Yeah.
And being carried aloft by the players. And I think
I remember that photo from the newspaper.
I believe that one was played over at the Volpe complex.
Okay, all right. So, but the thing was, we're playing Mankato State, and the coach of Mankato is from Minnesota, and he's a dear friend of mine. We're on the rules committee together. But he's a real cowboy. He's wearing a cowboy hat, And then you got the pseudo-intellect cowboy here, wearing a cowboy hat with boots and everything else. But, it was just enough to take the edge off. And they listened to it, to the coaches. And, like I said, we won about 19 games in a row, went undefeated, and won the national championship. I only wore that hat, that one year. I never put it on again.
do you still have it somewhere?
I still have it. Yeah, it's up in the attic. It's there. I've brought it out a couple of times, and I've gone to a couple of functions with it, but I've never put it on. I've had it in my hand, but I never put it on.
So at what point did the local rivalry, it takes 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, depending on traffic, to get from UMass Lowell up to Merrimack up there in North Andover. At what point did it go from a rivalry that they were dominating, you finally break through, you describe that, to the rivalry, which would make you say, let me read the quote here, because I screen captured it here on my phone. You're quoted as saying, I hate Merrimack. I hate their school. I hate the color of their uniforms. I hate the Indian chief on their shirts. I even hate their expletive deleted zip code, because newspapers can't print that word. What was the word with the expletive delete? It starts with an F.
No, their freaking zip code.
Yeah, you hate their freaking zip. I
ran out of adjectives. I just threw in the zip code because I ran out of things to say.
So that's Bruins Canadians type stuff in the 70s. That's Red Sox Yankees for forever. What, dare I say it's Chelmsford Billerica football. But what would make you get to that point where you would hate their logo and their effing zip code?
Like I said earlier, I was a bit of a carnival man, and that came from my locker room at the Forum was right next to the referee's room. And it got to the point at one point where the referees would be in the locker room. They'd be in there between periods. And one of them tape recorded a few of my speeches. And that's where that came from. You know what I mean? And so, at their banquet, they'd play a couple of, quotes from my vociferous days as as a motivator in ice hockey.
So are you saying you maybe played it up for your players? That, the hatred wasn't that strong?
This was an intermission speech.
Yeah, this was in intermission. You know,
but the players legitimately. This was.
That would fight.
Those games were hard hitting, skirmishes, and you don't fight in college. You fight in college hockey. You're out.
I recruited personalities as much as talent. I recruited guys that would respond. You know, I mean, it got to the point so people would call us a bunch of bullies, you know. So I'd say, okay, look, we're going out. We're not going to hit anybody. We're just going to play, skate, and pass them, and outskate them, and outshoot them, and outscore them, and you know, skate them into the ground. No penalty, no checking. You know, don't hit anybody. You know, just to change the format. Like we don't have to be a physical team, but we were like the old Philadelphia Flyers were in their heyday, you know, they're a bunch of bullies.
The Broad Street Bullies.
Yeah. Well, we were the Broad Street Bullies in our heyday, and you know, a lot of times, a few players would say, "I think I'll take the night off." Mentally, I think I'll take the night off. I'm not going into that corner with these guys, you know.
So we've talked a lot about the facilities, your lack of them. They had the hockey arena. But then, you know, when they moved to Division I, their hockey arena was the laughingstock of Hockey East. Ultimately, as you said, the Tsongas Center became one of the gems of Hockey East. But it strikes me that would the rivalry have been as intense if you played in, you know, a pristine arena like the Tsongas Center and the Volpe arena, or the Volpe Center, Lawler Arena, in what it is now? Because, you know, now they've done a nice little job. Merrimack has put millions of dollars into it. But you were playing in the Tully Forum and in it was a university hockey arena, but it wasn't all that great. That added to it.
Oh, yes.
Didn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it added to it because I think both buildings are kind of small. Billy says, you know, we took the Tully Forum because it had, or Bill Ricker Forum as it was originally, took that because it had more seats than the Janus rink. But neither of them had, you know, overwhelming amount of space. So what happens is you get the place filled, the low ceilings, the sound reverberates. I was really, you know, and I was at some of those games as a fan. I wasn't yet working the games. But I remember the fans being a big part of the show, of the rivalry, whether Merrimack fans were throwing tennis balls on the ice, whether it was the Chief fans with the newspapers during introductions. There was a lot of hijinks that took part in the stands. And I think that's what made the rivalry. The rivalry. Fans got into it on both sides, and you put them in the small buildings, so you got to get there early. You get revved up. The noise just reverberates around the building.
And in the bleachers at the Tully, you're 20 feet from the ice. It's not like now you're up in the you know, luxury boxes and
you're ducking pucks.
The top level, or you're sitting in the pavilion sipping wine and martinis. Right? They were drinking, you know. They were probably sneaking their own stuff in, and they were literally 20 feet from there. So it wasn't a long throw to throw something onto the ice at the players, was it?
Well, there was one game at the old Bill Ricker Forum. I call it the Bill Ricker Forum. It was the Joe Tully Forum. And so what I did, I was able to get a one-day liquor license, beer and wine, and I gave one side of the rink. That money went to the baseball team for their trip to Florida. And on the other side of the rink, I gave that money, the beer and wine license, to the track team. And then in the snack bar, I gave that money to the lacrosse coach for his lacrosse team. Because I was the assistant athletic director at the time, so I was always trying to let hockey promote and help the other sports as much as possible. So I'm trying. I think I'm losing my thoughts on.
But it was the fans that was the show.
The fans made it.
So with the fans, but one of the things, like, see, we Merrimack would throw tennis balls at us, and I kind of said, well, why are they throwing tennis balls? But I think it came from the fact that our first rink, our first rink was
a tennis court, right?
So maybe they had enough insight that they make them believe. You know,
they're clever up there. They were students as well as athletes, right?
Yeah, and then our fans would come back with Merrimack stinks just like the river, meaning the Merrimack River, and so there was a lot of bantering back and forth between the fans, and there was a time when the student government had money, and they would have like 2 busloads, minimum 2 busloads, that would travel with the team, not on our bus. They have their own bus, but they would follow the team.
When we lined up this interview, I went back, I tried to get some old stories on it. Attendance was, they're saying there were over 3,000 people in that forum. There's no bleeping way the fire marshal.
Well, the fire,
that's not the capacity.
As long as the fire marshal got in, keep bringing them in. But Billy can tell you a story, which I think the quote at the end was, we'd sold all the tickets that could be sold. And the guy who was selling the tickets comes to Billy and says, I'm out of tickets. What do I do? And I think you gave him the 50-50 tickets. Said, here, give him these. We're carnival men. The tent's always open. And you just packed the place. Yeah,
well, there was another time when Bill Joel, he was the guy that took the tickets for me and helped manage the game during game time. And he said, and they were literally, it must have been the Merrimack game. It must have been 6 or 8 deep at the glass, no seats. Yeah. And he said, look, some people are asking to get their money back because they can't see the rink. And I said, give them their money back, but don't close the doors. Somebody else will want to come in, and they'll pay their money and they'll come in. So keep the doors open.
All due respect to Coach Bazin. He's playing in that fancy building with his fancy weight rooms. He didn't have to worry about 50-50 raffles or people coming up to him during the game to say people want refunds. You did it all back then, and now they have a staff of 20 supporting the hockey team, right?
And it was an ECAC game, so the ECAC got all the money. And believe it or not, my father's been in hockey for a number of years. He was a referee. And he knew the commissioner of the ECAC. And the commissioner actually stayed at my father's house the night of this game. And so, after the game, I don't know if the school gave him the money right then and there, but they told him what the gate was, how much it was. And, it was a sizable amount of money. I mean, it's still not a lot of money in today's day, but, for 3,000 seat arena, it was a lot of money. There's probably another 1,000 people than what he normally expected to see. But the ECAC got to keep all that money.
So they were okay with capacity laws being not broken, stretched a little, right?
But not to mention when we had the beer and wine license, I had 2 police officers employed working at the rink. Just to stay outside of the door to keep order. So obviously the police, they're happy, they're getting paid, and then they'd always come and, cover the parking lot and everything else. But then they're all, Bill Wick is a big hockey town, so they're not gonna, kill the golden goose.
But I'm curious, is this still a rivalry though, Lowell and Merrimack? It was when both were good. But I would suggest in recent years, the UMass Lowell, UMass Amherst meetings have become a bit more of a rivalry. We've had since Norm Bejan became head coach in Lowell with the 2011-12 season, and Nate Lehman became the head coach at Providence the same year. There's really been a rivalry that's developed between those two as well. I don't know if... And I think it's great for college hockey that Lowell and Merrimack are both good, and maybe it rekindles the rivalry. But remember, I'm saying rekindles. I'm not sure there is that rivalry there, although I'm told that it got the late game on.
It's the second game on
because
Friday
they
night.
Feel they could sell more tickets to that game than to BU Providence, which are terrific college hockey names in general. And BU is Boston-based, but they suspect that they can sell more for Merrimack Lowell.
Maybe they're trying to trying to capitalize on the golden days.
So maybe that rivalry still does exist now that Merrimack has stepped up. And I do phrase it that way on purpose.
Yeah.
They stepped up. Lowell's been playing at a high level for more than a decade.
Yeah, yeah. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. You know? I mean, I hope the rivalry continues to simmer or boil.
I'd like it to come to a boil, absolutely.
The problem is that when you play games at the Garden, it's tougher to get a turkey into the net. You really have to have some connections to do that. Which,
a little crazy. But
does Coach Bazin have that in him? Is he, can he pull that off?
Well, I know the coaches at Merrimack. They're both old friends. In fact, the head coach was at one time the coach of Colby, and recruited my son to go to Colby. But when my son was going to Colby, he took the Bowling Green job. So he went to Bowling Green, and then the other assistant, he was a great player at BC, and I'd always run into him when I was refereeing the games, because when I was in Division II, I refereed Division I hockey games. So they're both good friends of mine. They're great guys.
So in terms of what the game means, basically this is a win or go home. Game, right? Because both UMass Lowell and Merrimack have to win the Hockey East tournament to get into the NCAA tournament.
Well, Lowell does. Lowell does at this point.
Does Merrimack have a chance if they don't win Hockey East?
Yes.
Okay.
They probably, and I would say they probably would have to beat Lowell and then could lose to BU and still get in. If they lose to Lowell, there are a couple of scenarios in which case they would still get in, but they've got to hope there are no upsets in any other conferences. They need in all other conferences to have the conference favorite win their tournaments.
And for Lowell, it's if they don't win Hockey East, if they don't win both games,
it's
Merrimack,
winner, you're done.
Saturday game, they're going home.
Right.
So, all right. Well, the stakes are high.
Yeah.
Once again, especially for the Riverhawks. They're always going to be the Chiefs to me. But how hard was it for you to get used to calling them Riverhawks?
Hard, real hard.
Did you curse that like you cursed Merrimack's zip code?
No comment.
I'm going to blame Dana Skinner for that one. But Coach Riley, thank you. It was fun catching up. I remember reading these stories and listening to the games on the radio. For some reason, my memory deceived me, though, and told me Bob actually called those games.
I like your memory better than my career.
You did not. But thank you so much. This was fun. It's always great. Hockey East is as good as it gets, although, Division II, Lowell and Merrimack, that was as good as it got as well. So thank you for building us, getting us to that point, because without you, there is no UMass Lowell hockey. There's no sellouts at the Songus and people sipping their high-priced drinks in the pavilion, as I mockingly call it. But you're the guy that made that all possible. So thank you for that. Thanks for joining us here at Inside.
And I would note Billy's Division II teams had a winning record against Division I schools as well during that era.
Yeah, the NHL players.
There wasn't a whole lot of difference between 1 and 2.
Sure. And Bob, thank you as well, because you've become synonymous with UMass Lowell hockey. You're the guy that spans, the generations from Bill Riley to Norm Bazin and everybody in between. Yeah. So I'm sure you're going to be high above your perch up there. They call it the halo, right? They still call it the halo at the Garden, the 9th floor.
Yeah.
You'll be high above. How hard is it to call a game? 9 stories up at the bleeping Garden.
When I've walked in, and it's actually 6 stories because the ice level is the 3rd floor. But I've walked in at the ice and looked up at the press box. There's no way I can see from up there. But it's amazing when you get up there, you can see far better than you ever would have expected. And the angle's terrific. You're not screened out on anything, but you are a long way away.
Well, here's hoping that you get to call a Hockey East championship game and a victory, and you get to do some traveling for the NCAA tournament.
Can't wait.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bill Riley, Bob Ellis.
A pleasure.
It's going to be a blast. I love talking hockey. I love talking to you out there in Lowell, inside Lowell, as we like to say. If Lowell is your home, this is your place. Thank you for joining us here on this podcast. Till next time, stay safe, gang.
Okay, good.